I've always liked the way that this company handled its clients. Now, when I was living with my family...
Wait, is this short running backwards?
Based on the look of this guy, I'd say yes, we're definitely receiving satanic messages.
And we got to know the salesman.
Please don't turn into porn. Please don't turn into porn.
When I started looking around for a new job, it didn't take me long to realize that I had to line up some interviews to get anywhere.
Also a Hulk Hogan mustache, clown tie, and a blazer made of Wrangler jeans.
About yourself, what you're like, how suited you are for their company. But they don't have time to talk to everyone.
So get your foot in the door by arriving drenched in sweat, carrying a 9-iron.
Resume first.
Yes, the spelling of resume is always consistent. Moving on!
A resume is a written summary of yourself, of what you're all about.
Including height,
In just
weight,
a page
and
or
health?
two.
Yeah, employers don't want shorties, fatties, or deadies.
At what kind of job you're looking for, where you went to school, and what kind of work you've done before. And I'll
for the
tell
weekend,
you, I
working for
found
the
out a
weekend,
good
working
resume
for the
is a
weekend.
lot more important than I thought. Everybody I interviewed with said the
Whoa,
same.
look out. Hey, hey, camera, hey!
policy here is that only job applicants who submit a resume get an interview.
The rest get model
Someone calls
shits.
up or writes asking for an interview, I tell them to send a resume first. After all, it's the only way I can evaluate all the requests I get each week.
Here at Job Place
Yes,
Industries.
well, I hope you'll call us again. I hope we've helped you. Goodbye.
Amelia Earhart's ghost, personnel manager.
One of the most important things about preparing a resume is to keep it to the point, to make it neat and clean.
Like the glasses of scotch that get me through the days here.
It shouldn't be gimmicky or filled with a lot of unnecessary information. Just a well-organized sheet with all the necessary information and facts.
Such as how much toilet crying you do in a typical workday.
Sure. Some of the best people we have here walk right in without a resume, but not many.
The rest are disqualified for laughing at my
I usually like to know a little
tie.
bit about a person before I interview him. It saves a lot of time for the both of us.
Being the Black Colonel
I mean,
Sanders
what good
keeps
is
him
an
very
interview if
busy.
I have to spend 90% of the time finding out where a person went to school or who they worked for in the past few years.
Like I give a damn.
Of course, when the thought of changing jobs first came up, I didn't have much idea of how to put together a resume. I didn't even know where to start.
I filled a tire with pudding and set it on
The
fire.
best thing to do was head for the library.
The library immediately banned him from using the computers, even though they didn't have any yet.
There was a whole shelf of books on the subject. I found a couple that looked pretty good and brought them home.
Good to see Malachi from Children
They
of the
had
Corn
examples
grow
of
up and
all
get his
different
act
kinds
together.
of resumes. But I noticed that every one of them always included the same 4 basic sections.
Milk, milk, lemonade, round the corner, fudge.
Don't!
Your job objective, your education, and previous employment. A lot of times, personal history came first. When you were
You ever
born,
been a baby?
the condition of your health,
You ever wear a
your
bikini?
military experience, your height and
You
weight,
ever pointed stuff?
whether you're married and if you have any kids or not. It gives a personnel director a much better picture of just who you are and what you're like right off the bat.
And a host of fun ways to discriminate
But I
against
guess
it.
the hardest part of the resume for me was putting down my job objective.
Ginger Walrus.
You have to explain exactly what kind of work you want to do.
She meant to work
You've
on
got to
planes,
be
and he
completely
meant to
honest
sell
in evaluating
dresses.
your own
Oopsie
abilities and
daisy.
attitude. To get some ideas of how to do it, I looked at some of the sample resumes in this book and compared
You know,
each
most of
job
these shorts
objective
should just
with
be
the
called
person's
Go Get a
background and
Book.
Experience.
I'm a buyer for a clothing store.
Not this one. I'm just
responsible
shoplifting.
for going to the trade shows and selecting which lines of sportswear we'll carry. When I got out of high school, I worked as a sales girl in the women's section of a department store. But I wanted to do something else.
Oh, thanks for that
something more rewarding.
flashback. I never could have imagined
That's why
what
I
that
wanted to
looked
move
like.
up to this job. Now, I want to move up again.
Then I'll
the
be
first thing I
happy,
did was put together a
right?
resume.
Right?
Considering my background and knowing that I wanted a job with more responsibility, the job objective was pretty obvious.
So I wrote,
I wanted
all
to be
work
a
and no
sales
play makes
manager of
Jack a
women's
dull boy 5,000
It's
times.
a pretty reasonable goal, considering my previous experience as a sales girl and a buyer. I think I'll get it, too.
You felt like a
There were
threat.
all kinds of job objectives in the book, and they weren't all for white-collar jobs either. One guy worked on jet engines.
Oh, yeah, I guess you wouldn't want me doing any white-collar jobs, huh?
Put me to work servicing jets.
So racist.
When I got out, that enabled me to land a job here as an electrician's apprentice.
When a man on the wing of the plane rips up stuff, I'm your guy.
Technician. A friend of mine told me if I were going to start looking around, I'd better have a resume, so I made one.
Great. Hey, maybe let's stop distracting the guy who's fixing the airplane.
I have a pretty good chance to get what I want.
I had been a claims examiner for an insurance company, but I wanted to get out and meet more people and make more money.
So I became a prostitute.
So I decided to apply to several insurance companies for a job as a sales representative. Since my previous experience had been in medical and life insurance,
I felt all powerful, like a god, really.
Once the job objective was out of the way, the rest of the resume was pretty easy.
He just looked up a lot of
Under
synonyms
education,
for awesome.
I put down the name of my high school and the year I graduated. And that I'm going to night school now at the junior college.
Please don't show it. It's very
I even
depressing.
listed some of the
I
business
said,
courses
please
I'm
don't
taking
show it.
to make my qualifications a little stronger. As far as employment goes, I'm working in claims with an automobile insurance company.
I know, ladies. You just felt something down there, didn't you?
Summer vacations as an office boy. I once worked part-time as a salesman in a hardware store, too.
Yep, I've lived a
It wasn't
full,
much,
rich
but it was
life.
selling experience, and selling is what a sales representative's job is all about. So I put down all the jobs, starting with the current one first.
He had a
and then
6-year-old
going back to
niece
the
write
others.
it up for him.
I also put down the name of each employer and the dates I worked at each job, too. Then I was ready to make the final draft.
Of my suicide note.
A lot of people ask me what the best format is for a resume.
Which is a very different
Well,
thing
I
than
like
a
to see
resume.
The most important information first. To me, that's a person's job experience and school background. If I like what I see, I'll keep on reading. And if I don't,
Let's just
well,
say
then
I
it
save on
really
toilet
doesn't
paper
matter
for
how
one
old
more
they are
day.
or where they were born.
Lady.
As far as the actual physical preparation goes,
I recommend using monkey blood as ink, but that's just my preference.
If you don't have a typewriter or can't borrow one, take your rough draft to a secretarial service, and for a few dollars, they'll do a neat job of typing it up for you.
Sometimes adding
You'll
random
probably be
obscenities
sending
as
your
they
resume to
go.
more than one place. You want to make several copies. And I'd say the photocopy machine in the public library would be about your best bet.
It's getting a little too
quality's
personal for
pretty
my
good,
taste.
And the price is awfully hard to beat.
Now enjoy some mellow copier music.
Before I sent out my resumes, I still had two things to do.
Kill all my rivals for the
First,
job
I
and
had
buy
to
some
decide
stamps.
who to send them to. Then I had to write a cover letter for each one. Well, I made a list of 12 companies that I wanted to interview.
Every one of them
So that
turned out
meant
to
I
be
had to write
Orange
12
Julius.
What should an introductory letter say? Well, first of all, it shouldn't say too much.
Especially about
should be
compensating
brief.
for baldness by
Rarely
growing
more
a
than
big
one
beard.
page.
Just avoid that
It shouldn't
topic.
simply repeat what you've already put in your resume. The first thing to do in the letter is to identify the position you're applying for.
E.g. capybara trainer or meat cheerleader.
Don't just say, I want a job with your company. Let them know exactly what job it is you want. And tell them what made you apply in the first place.
E.g., that fever you
Whether it was
contracted
the
while in the
want ads,
tropics, which made you go mad
or
for
an
weeks.
employment agency, or a sign in front of the office. Or whether you simply took a chance and pulled their name out of the phone book.
In which case, what the hell were you thinking?
Know how your interests and experience, your goals and desires specifically relate to the type of work you're looking for.
Don't go too nuts on the desires
Tell them that
part,
you've
though,
included
you
your
freak.
resume. And conclude your letter by requesting the next step in the process of getting an interview.
Again, avoid any mention of a man theoretically compensating for baldness with a
Take the
huge
initiative
beard.
By suggesting that you'll call them to arrange an appointment. Or ask them to write or phone you at their convenience to set things up.
And don't have a big bushy mustache that might make a theoretically bald man with a huge beard feel inadequate all over
Whether you send
again.
it to someone specifically, or simply in care of the personnel director, make sure your letter is short and to the point. Don't worry about being cute or clever.
So Ira Glass, don't even bother applying.
I was finally ready to mail the resumes and letters of introduction, and to begin the wait for results.
My feelings of emptiness were nearly overwhelming.
The wait can be pretty long. After all, a personnel director gets a lot of mail each day.
Especially the personnel
And it takes
director for the
time
Nation
him
of
to
Islam.
evaluate each resume. Still, if you haven't heard anything from them after several weeks, it's probably a good idea to write a follow-up letter.
Oh my God,
Asking
this
what your
psycho
status
again?
is, and when they'll be able to plan an
God,
interview.
I think it's time to call the police.
A telephone call might help speed things up, too.
Make sure to call your target at home around 3 a.m. when you know they're there.
And be sure to thank them for their cooperation, even if they're not cooperating as much as you think they should be.
That's what keying their cars is
In
for.
time, all of this will eventually result in your goal.
A meeting with a bitter guy who compensated for his baldness by growing way too much facial hair.
I've made a huge mistake.
Let's leave these guys alone in their own private hell.
Riff Tracks. Some movies have it coming. Riff Tracks. Copyright by Riff Tracks. All rights reserved. Unauthorized use or duplication is prohibited.